The stars had always been a mystery to humanity. For centuries, Earth's scientists dreamed of contacting beings from other worlds, but the possibility seemed distant, something only imagined in the wildest dreams of science fiction. Little did they know, the universe was already watching them, waiting for the right moment to make its presence known. That moment came unexpectedly. In the year 2085, Earth was stunned by a visitor from the stars. A massive spaceship, larger than anything humanity had ever built, appeared in the skies above the planet. Its sleek, shimmering surface reflected the sunlight, casting strange, dazzling patterns across the sky. The world watched in awe, unsure of what was happening. Was this the end of human civilization, or the beginning of something extraordinary? The ship was from a species known as the Zorthians, a powerful ancient race that had mastered space travel long before humans had even discovered how to send rockets to the moon. They were known across the galaxy as a race of intellectuals, diplomats, and rulers. Their technology was far beyond what Earth could even imagine, but despite their advanced knowledge, they had always kept their distance from Earth, until now. The Zorthians didn't come to conquer. They came with a proposal, one that would change everything for humanity. A group of Zorthian representatives descended to Earth in a grand display of light and sound. They landed in the middle of the United Nations headquarters, just as the world's leaders had gathered to discuss matters of peace and cooperation. The Zorthians made their intentions clear, using a universal translator that allowed them to speak directly with humans. "We have watched your species for centuries," the Zorthian leader, Vorel, said. "We have seen your struggles, your triumphs, and your potential. But we also know that you are not yet ready to join the larger community of galactic civilizations. However, there is one way that might change." The world's leaders exchanged confused glances. They had expected an invasion or an attack, but instead they were hearing words of peace. Vorel continued, "Our people face a great challenge," Vorel explained. "Our civilization is in danger. Over time, we have become stagnant. Our knowledge, our culture, our evolution have all plateaued. We have reached a point where we can no longer advance. We have come to offer you an alliance, but not in the way you might think." Humanity was now listening intently. An alliance? But why? "To prove that you are ready to join us," Vorel said, "we offer you a gift. One of our most cherished individuals, a woman from our species, our most revered. We will give her to humanity, to live among you, to teach you, to guide you. She will show you the power of our knowledge, and in return, we ask for your help in a future time when the stars demand it." The world was in shock. This offer, so strange and unexpected, was unlike anything anyone had imagined. The idea that a highly advanced alien race would give one of their own to humanity as a gift felt like something out of a fairy tale. But the Zorthians were serious. They had no intention of taking back their offer. In fact, they had already chosen the individual they would give. Her name was Lyan. Lyan stepped forward, and the entire room fell silent. She was beautiful beyond measure, even by human standards. Her skin glowed with a soft, ethereal light, and her eyes sparkled like twin stars. Her presence radiated both power and serenity. She was tall and graceful, her movements so fluid they seemed almost unreal. Despite her beauty, it was clear that Lyan was not just a symbol of her people's power. She was an embodiment of their knowledge, wisdom, and evolution. She was everything the Zorthians held dear. And now she was being offered to humanity, not as a trophy, but as a partner. "I come not as a conqueror, but as a teacher," Lyan said in perfect English. Her voice was calm and soothing, yet carried an air of authority. "I will share with you the knowledge of my people. I will help guide you as you take your first steps into a larger universe." The world's leaders were stunned. How could they accept such an offer? Was this some kind of trick? And yet, deep down, they knew they had little choice. This was an opportunity that could shape the future of humanity, an opportunity that might never come again. After a long, tense silence, Earth's leaders agreed to the pact. They had no idea what this decision would mean, but they knew they had to take the chance. Lyan would be the first alien to live among humans, a bridge between their worlds. Her arrival would mark the beginning of a new era. The next few days were filled with excitement and uncertainty. News of the Zorthian gift spread quickly around the globe, sparking a mix of curiosity, fear, and awe. People gathered in cities and towns to catch a glimpse of their new alien guest. The media was filled with speculation. Who was Lyan? What would her presence mean for humanity? Would this lead to an alliance, or would it be the beginning of something much more dangerous? As the day of Lyan's arrival approached, anticipation reached a fever pitch. The world waited, hoping for peace, but fearing what might come next. And then, on the morning of her arrival, it happened. Lyan descended from the sky in a beam of brilliant light, landing on the steps of the United Nations building. The world was watching. Lyan stepped out of the ship, her gaze sweeping across the gathered crowd. She looked calm, confident, almost regal. As she walked forward, humanity's future felt uncertain. But in that moment, one thing was clear. Everything was about to change. The day of Lyan's arrival was a moment that would go down in history. People from all over the world watched with bated breath as the alien ship descended slowly from the sky, its massive shape casting a shadow over the United Nations building. Cameras flashed from every angle, capturing every second of the historic event. News channels around the globe broadcasted the moment live, as millions of eyes turned toward the unknown. Lyan's ship was unlike anything Earth had ever seen. It didn't look like a typical spacecraft. There were no sharp angles or metallic surfaces that reflected the light. Instead, it had a smooth, flowing shape, almost as if it were alive, moving with an elegance that seemed unnatural. The ship settled softly on the ground, and for a moment, there was complete silence. Then, the doors of the ship opened. Lyan stepped out, her presence immediately commanding attention. The air around her shimmered with energy as she walked down the ramp, her movements graceful and fluid. She stood tall, her glowing skin a soft, radiant blue, and her long silver hair cascaded down her back like a waterfall of light. Her eyes, two deep pools of iridescent violet, scanned the crowd, her expression calm but intense. As soon as Lyan's feet touched the earth, the crowd erupted into applause and cheers. She raised one hand in a peaceful gesture, her soft smile calming the excitement. Her calm demeanor made it clear that she wasn't just a visitor. She was someone important, someone who carried the weight of her entire species with her. The world's leaders stood at the front of the crowd, ready to meet her. President Samuel Ross of the United States, along with representatives from Russia, China, and Europe, took their first steps toward Lyan, their faces a mixture of awe and uncertainty. "We welcome you, Lyan," President Ross said, his voice steady but full of wonder. "Your arrival marks the beginning of a new chapter in human history. We are honored to have you here." Lyan nodded gracefully, her eyes locking with his. "Thank you, President Ross," she replied, her voice clear and soothing, carrying the weight of someone who had seen many worlds. "I come in peace, not as a conqueror, but as a partner. My people believe that humanity has great potential, and we are here to offer you our knowledge, our guidance, and our friendship." The world's leaders exchanged glances. They had prepared for this moment, but hearing her words made it all the more real. They had known this day would come, but they hadn't truly understood what it would feel like. The realization was overwhelming. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. Lyan's words were meant to reassure, but the crowd still had many questions. What did she mean by guidance? What kind of help could a species from another galaxy offer? And why was she giving herself to humanity in the first place? Before these questions could be asked, Lyan stepped forward again, her eyes scanning the crowd. "I know that many of you have doubts," she said, her voice carrying across the square. "It is natural to question the unknown. But I assure you, I am here to learn as much from you as you are from me. My people have been watching your species for centuries, and we have seen your potential. You are capable of great things." The crowd was silent as they listened. Many were skeptical, still unsure of what to make of this mysterious alien. But there was something about Lyan's presence, something in the way she spoke, that made it impossible to ignore her words. "We will be working together," Lyan continued. "There is much that you can teach us, and much that we can offer in return. I will stay with you, here on Earth, for as long as I am needed. My role is to guide you, to share the knowledge of my people, and to help you prepare for the challenges that lie ahead." At the mention of challenges, there was a shift in the air. The leaders of Earth were quick to ask questions about what exactly those challenges might be. Was this an invasion warning? Was Earth in danger from another alien species? Lyan paused, her gaze soft but unwavering. "Your species is not ready to join the greater galactic community yet," she explained. "There are many challenges you cannot see yet. There are forces out there, races much older and much more powerful than you, who may see your potential as a threat. But I believe that humanity has the strength to overcome these challenges. I believe that you are capable of rising above." The leaders were quiet now, their minds racing. The unknown dangers that Lyan spoke of felt distant yet real. The idea that Earth, a small planet in the corner of the galaxy, might be caught up in a conflict with far more powerful civilizations was frightening. But in Lyan's presence, there was also a sense of hope. If anyone could help humanity prepare for such a future, it was her. "We will work together to make Earth stronger," President Ross said, his voice filled with resolve. "Together, we can face whatever comes." Lyan nodded, pleased with his response. "That is why I am here. To help you grow, to teach you, and to stand beside you." As the day wore on, Lyan met with scientists, engineers, and leaders from around the world. She shared her knowledge of advanced technology and medicine, offering humanity glimpses into a future that was far beyond anything they had imagined. The human race watched in awe as she demonstrated new ways of thinking, solving problems, and building things. The technology she shared was beyond comprehension, yet it worked in ways that were simple and intuitive. In the weeks that followed, Lyan became a symbol of hope and progress. She taught humans how to heal diseases that had plagued them for centuries, how to harness energy from the stars, and how to think about the universe in new and profound ways. The world began to change, and in the process, humanity began to realize just how much they had yet to learn. But despite all the gifts she gave, there was still one question that remained unanswered. What was the true purpose of Lyan's arrival? Was it simply to share knowledge, or was there something more? And as the world celebrated the new era, deep in the stars, the shadows of unknown dangers continued to grow. The first chapter of Earth's story among the stars had begun, but it was only the beginning. The days following Lyan's arrival were filled with wonder and excitement. Earth's people marveled at the advances she brought, from life-saving technologies to new ways of thinking. Scientists worked alongside her, learning quickly, soaking up every piece of knowledge she shared. The world was changing in ways that had once been unimaginable. But even as humanity celebrated, Lyan knew that her mission was more complex than anyone could have understood. There was much more to her presence on Earth than anyone had been told. Lyan had never been truly open about why she, the most revered member of the Zorthian species, had come to Earth. She had spoken of teaching, of sharing knowledge, and helping humanity grow. But there were deeper truths buried beneath her words. She was not just here to guide humans toward greatness. She had a role that was far more important to the survival of her own species. A few weeks into her stay, Lyan had started having quiet, private meetings with the highest-ranking Zorthian officials. In these closed sessions, she spoke of the challenges facing her people. The Zorthians, despite their advanced civilization, were on the brink of collapse. Their technology was unmatched, their culture rich, but something was missing, something essential for their future. As the meetings continued, Lyan became more open about the real reason behind the Zorthian offer. Our people have reached a dead end, she confessed to her fellow Zorthian leaders in a quiet meeting. We have learned everything there is to learn. We have mastered every aspect of our existence, yet we can no longer grow. Our species is stagnating. We need something new, something that will push us forward. The Zorthian leaders, wise as they were, knew that they had been running out of options. Their technology could do almost anything, yet their civilization felt hollow. Lyan, as their greatest mind, had been tasked with finding the key to their survival. She had come to a conclusion that was as bold as it was frightening. To continue evolving, to survive as a species, the Zorthians needed to merge with another race, a species that could bring fresh genetic potential. And Lyan had chosen humanity. I believe that Earth is the answer, she said to the council, her voice calm but filled with conviction. Humans have something we do not. Their unpredictability, their adaptability, the way they evolve and change. This is what we need. We must merge with them, genetically, mentally. Only then will we be able to survive. The Zorthian leaders were silent at first, stunned by the gravity of Lyan's words. They had never considered such a radical solution, but they could not deny that their species was in decline. And in that moment, they realized that the future of their civilization depended on the success of Lyan's mission. Meanwhile, on Earth, Lyan continued to build her reputation. People admired her not only for her beauty, but also for her wisdom. She was a teacher, a healer, and a symbol of progress. But beneath the surface, Lyan was struggling with her own feelings. She had not expected to care so much about the humans she had come to teach. She had not expected to feel a deep connection to this world, this fragile, young planet. The humans she worked with, especially Dr. Elias Carter, a leading geneticist, had become a source of both fascination and conflict for her. Dr. Carter was brilliant, passionate, and curious in ways that reminded her of the Zorthians in their early days. He was eager to learn, but there was something about his questions, his insights, that made Lyan wonder if humanity might not be as inferior as her people had once believed. One evening, after a long day of work, Lyan sat with Dr. Carter in a quiet room at the United Nations building. The moonlight filtered through the windows, casting a soft glow across the table where they sat. They had been discussing a new medical breakthrough, a treatment for a disease that had plagued humans for centuries. But as they talked, Lyan couldn't help but wonder if she was doing the right thing. "You speak of potential," Dr. Carter said, his voice gentle. "But what if humanity already has everything it needs to thrive on its own? Maybe we don't need help from your people. Maybe we're already strong enough." Lyan looked at him, her violet eyes thoughtful. "Perhaps you are right, Dr. Carter. But your species is not ready for the galaxy's full embrace. Not yet. There are dangers out there, forces far greater than anything you have seen. Without our guidance, your world might not survive the challenges ahead." Dr. Carter didn't answer immediately. He looked at her, searching for some deeper truth in her words. Lyan had been kind, helpful, and inspiring, but he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something she wasn't telling him, something she hadn't fully shared with the world. "I trust you, Lyan," he said after a long pause. "But I can't help but wonder, what exactly are you not telling us? What's the real reason you've come here?" Lyan's expression softened, and for a brief moment, she allowed herself to be vulnerable. "The truth is, my people are not as advanced as they once were. The Zorthians have reached a point where we can no longer evolve on our own. We need something fresh, something new. And I believe that humanity, with all its unpredictability and potential, is the key to our survival." Dr. Carter was stunned. He had suspected that there was more to the story, but hearing Lyan speak so openly was unexpected. He was silent for a long time, processing what she had just revealed. "So, you're not here just to help us," he said slowly. "You're here because your species needs us." Lyan nodded. "Yes, and I did not come to manipulate you, Dr. Carter. I came because I believe that humanity is capable of more than anyone, perhaps even you." realizes. But the Zorthians, they are not so patient. They do not understand your potential the way I do. Dr. Carter stood up, looking out the window at the stars. I see, he said quietly. So, what happens next? Lyan stood too, walking to his side. She placed a hand on his shoulder, a silent gesture of understanding. I do not know what the future holds, Dr. Carter. But I believe that humanity has the strength to rise above anything that comes its way. And I will stand by your side as you face what's ahead. As Lyan looked out at the stars, she wondered if her people would ever truly understand what she had learned about humanity. She had come to Earth to save her species, but in doing so, she had found something far more precious, something worth fighting for. The weeks following Lyan's confession brought a change in the atmosphere around Earth. While many still celebrated her presence and the advancements she had helped bring, there was an underlying sense of unease. The truth she had shared with Dr. Carter, though not widely known, had begun to ripple through the world's leaders, scientists, and thinkers. Humanity had been told that Lyan was here to help, to guide them to a brighter future. But now, some began to question the real reasons behind her arrival. As the United Nations convened for an emergency meeting, a sense of uncertainty hung in the air. The world's leaders were growing increasingly concerned about the potential consequences of the alien alliance. The Zorthian offer to merge their species with humanity, though presented as a mutually beneficial arrangement, seemed to hold deeper, more complicated truths. President Samuel Ross, a man who had once eagerly welcomed Lyan's presence, stood at the front of the room, facing his fellow leaders. His face was a mixture of resolve and doubt. The stakes were higher than anyone could have anticipated. Thank you all for coming at such short notice, President Ross began, his voice steady but filled with gravity. As you know, we have been in close communication with the Zorthians for several months. Lyan has shared with us her species' needs, and while many of her teachings have already brought great advancements to Earth, we must now consider a more difficult question. He paused, allowing the weight of his words to settle in. Are we willing to become part of a species that may be seeking to change us on a genetic level? Are we prepared for what this means, not just for Earth, but for humanity's future? A murmur rippled through the room as the leaders exchanged glances. Some looked uneasy, others deep in thought. The implications of Lyan's actions were beginning to feel more complicated than they had ever imagined. Ambassador Elena Reyes, a sharp and experienced diplomat from South America, was the first to speak. We were told that the Zorthians came to help, to share knowledge. But now we're hearing that they seek something more, something that could change the very essence of who we are as a species. Can we truly trust them? Her question hung in the air, and for a moment, no one answered. They all knew that this question was not one they could easily dismiss. Lyan, still seen as a symbol of progress by many, had left a mark on humanity. People all over the world had come to admire her intelligence, her beauty, and her wisdom. Yet behind her calm demeanor, there were those who feared what might happen if humanity allowed the Zorthians to shape them in ways they couldn't fully understand. Dr. Elias Carter, who had spent the most time with Lyan and worked alongside her on various projects, was torn. He knew that Lyan cared deeply about the people of Earth, and he had seen firsthand the genuine desire she had to help. But the deeper truth she had shared with him kept him awake at night. Was it fair for humanity to carry the weight of such a choice? As he sat in his office late one evening, surrounded by documents and research, his mind drifted back to the first time he had met Lyan. The way her eyes had sparkled with hope as she spoke of the future. But now, those same eyes seemed to carry a shadow of worry. She had confided in him about the Zorthian need for a new path forward, one that might require an exchange of DNA, a blending of their species to survive. And though Lyan had reassured him that she was doing this for the greater good, something in his heart told him that humanity's future was at stake in ways they hadn't yet realized. How much of this is truly about helping us? He asked aloud to no one in particular. His question lingered in the quiet room. The next day, Lyan visited the United Nations for a scheduled meeting. but there was an air of tension that hadn't been present before. When she entered the room, her presence was as powerful as ever, but it was clear that the atmosphere had shifted. The leaders were no longer just interested in the knowledge she shared. They now had doubts. Lyan stood at the front of the room, facing the world's leaders, and she could sense the change in their demeanor. They weren't as eager to embrace her as they had been in the past. There was a tension in the air, a questioning look in their eyes. She had known this moment would come, the moment when the humans would start to wonder if the price of progress was too high. "Is there something wrong?" she asked, her voice soft but full of concern. She had always been open with them, but now she felt the weight of their gaze. Ambassador Reyes was the first to respond. "Lyan, we have learned much from you, and we are grateful for your teachings. But we must ask, why are you truly here? Are you offering us a gift, or are we part of a larger plan we don't fully understand?" Lyan's violet eyes flickered with a hint of sorrow. She had anticipated this, but it still stung to hear the words spoken aloud. "I am here because I believe in humanity. My people, the Zorthians, have reached a point where we cannot continue to evolve without change. Our civilization is in danger of stagnating, and I believe that the potential of your species, the way you adapt, the way you grow, can offer us what we need." Dr. Carter, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "So, you're asking us to accept a genetic blending between our species in exchange for your guidance." His voice was steady, but there was an edge to it now. "And this is your solution to your people's stagnation?" Lyan didn't flinch, but her expression softened. "Yes, it is. I did not come here with deceit in my heart. I came to offer something that will help us both. Your world, your people, have the ability to evolve in ways that we cannot. But that evolution requires change, a change that is as much about us as it is about you." The room was silent. The weight of Lyan's words hung heavily in the air. There were those who still believed in the possibility of peace and progress, but there were also those who feared what this union might mean. President Ross took a deep breath. "We cannot make this decision lightly," he said. "We must consider the future of humanity. We must be careful about what we agree to. We are not merely pawns in someone else's survival plan." Lyan nodded, understanding the weight of his words. "I know. I ask only that you consider this with an open mind. The future of both our species depends on the choices we make now." As the meeting drew to a close, the leaders were left with more questions than answers. They had been offered an opportunity to become part of something greater, but the price was still unclear. The decision would not be made quickly. Time was running out, and the world's leaders knew that the coming days would determine not only their future, but the future of Earth itself. The tension in the air only grew as days passed after the United Nations meeting. Humanity had been offered a gift, one that seemed impossible to refuse. But as more people began to question the true cost of accepting the Zorthians' help, uncertainty spread like wildfire. The leaders of Earth were torn between the incredible opportunities Lyan had brought and the unsettling idea that they might be sacrificing their humanity for a future that was not entirely their own. Lyan, too, felt the weight of the decision pressing on her shoulders. She had come to Earth with the goal of helping both her species and humanity, but as the doubts grew, she wondered if she had made a mistake. Her people had been desperate, and she had believed that merging with humanity would offer salvation for the Zorthians. But now, as the humans began to hesitate, she began to question if she could truly ask them to make such a sacrifice. In private, Lyan met with Dr. Elias Carter once more. They sat together in the quiet of the laboratory, the hum of machines, and the soft glow of screens surrounding them. Lyan had always felt at ease with him, and though their discussions had become increasingly difficult, he was one of the few people she trusted fully. "You've been avoiding the topic," Dr. Carter said, his voice gentle yet firm. "I know there's more you're not telling me, Lyan. What exactly are the Zorthians asking for?" Lyan's eyes flickered with a mix of sadness and reluctance. She had been avoiding the question because the truth was too heavy to share. But now, she knew that Dr. Carter had a right to know. If humanity was going to make a decision, they had to know everything. I didn't want to tell you, she began, her voice quiet. But I understand now that I can't keep this secret any longer. Dr. Carter sat forward, his brow furrowed in concern. Lyan, what is it? What is the real reason your people need us? Lyan took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. She had always believed that the Zorthians' desperation was justified, that their survival depended on the success of their plan. But now, in this moment, the truth seemed far more complicated. The Zorthians are dying, she said softly, not physically, but in a way that cannot be reversed. Our civilization has reached a point of stagnation. We have everything we need. Advanced technology, knowledge, culture, but we can no longer evolve. We've reached the end of our growth. Dr. Carter's eyes widened, but he remained silent, waiting for her to continue. I came here because I believe that your species, humanity, has something we don't. You have the ability to adapt, to evolve in ways we can't. My people need that to survive. We need to merge with you, genetically, emotionally, and mentally. Only then can we continue to grow. Dr. Carter shook his head, struggling to process what she was saying. So you're asking us to give up something fundamental about ourselves, to become something else, something different. Lyan nodded, her expression solemn. Yes, I know it's a lot to ask, but without this, the Zorthians will die. Our culture will fade, our species will fade, and we will become nothing more than a relic of the past. I didn't want to ask this of you, but now, I see that it's the only way. The room felt heavy with the silence that followed. Dr. Carter leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. He had always known that Lyan carried the burden of her people's survival on her shoulders, but this was more than he had anticipated. She was asking for a sacrifice that went beyond anything humanity had ever considered. But what about us? He asked, his voice quieter now. What about our future? If we agree to this, what happens to us? To humanity as a whole? Lyan's eyes were filled with a deep sadness. I can't promise you that everything will remain the same. I can't promise that humanity will not change. But I can promise you this. You will not be alone in this. I will stand with you every step of the way. And we will work together to make sure that this process benefits both of our species. Dr. Carter's mind was filled with 1,000 questions. The idea of merging with an alien species, of changing humanity in such a profound way, was both terrifying and fascinating. What would humanity lose in the process? What would it gain? I don't know if we can make this decision, he said slowly. This is not just about science. It's about who we are as a species, what happens to our identity, our culture, our very essence if we accept your offer. Lyan stood, walking over to the window, where she gazed out at the world beyond. I understand your concerns, Dr. Carter. I feel them too. But you must understand that my people don't have the luxury of time. We are desperate. We cannot continue like this. And your world, with all its potential, is the answer we need. There was a long pause before Dr. Carter spoke again. And if we refuse, what happens to you? To your people? Lyan turned to face him, her violet eyes filled with a mix of hope and fear. If you refuse, the Zorthians will not survive. We will fade into history, a civilization that once had everything but could not change. I do not want that for my people, but I understand if humanity cannot agree to this. It is not a small choice. Dr. Carter closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. He had always been a man of logic, of reason. But this wasn't just a scientific decision. It was a moral one, and one that would change the course of history forever. I can't make this choice alone, he said quietly. We need to tell the world. The people of Earth have a right to know everything. They need to make this decision for themselves. Lyan nodded slowly, her gaze softening. I agree. You are right. This is not a decision I can make for you, but I will stand with you, no matter what you choose. The weight of the decision was heavy on both of them, But it was clear that the time for secrecy was over. The truth had to be shared with the world. The future of both species rested on the choices they made in the coming days. The days that followed the revelation were filled with a sense of urgency. Lyan had shared the truth, and now it was up to humanity to decide its future. The leaders of Earth, scientists and citizens alike, were grappling with the weight of the decision that lay ahead. The knowledge that they were faced with a choice that could shape the fate of both their species and the Zorthians was overwhelming. In the days after Dr. Carter and Lyan's conversation, Earth's leaders began to meet behind closed doors. The United Nations convened multiple times, trying to assess the situation. Some members were still hopeful, seeing the Zorthians' offer as a rare opportunity to propel humanity into a new era. Others, however, saw it as a dangerous path that might strip humanity of its essence. The question was simple, yet terrifying. Should they accept the Zorthians' request to merge their species, or should they reject the offer and risk the collapse of an alien civilization? Meanwhile, Lyan had returned to her quarters, where she spent her days in quiet reflection. Despite her calm exterior, she felt the weight of her people's desperation pressing on her. She had made the journey to Earth with a sense of purpose, convinced that this was the only way to save the Zorthians. But now, as she saw the humans' doubts and fears growing, she wondered if she had made the right choice. Was she truly helping them, or was she forcing them into a future they couldn't control? As the meetings continued, Lyan decided to take matters into her own hands. She knew that the leaders of Earth would need more than just words to make their decision. They needed to see the consequences of their choice, both for their world and for the Zorthians. She needed to show them what was at stake. One evening, Lyan requested a private meeting with President Samuel Ross. The world's leader had been struggling with the decision, and Lyan felt that only by speaking directly to him could she make him understand the urgency of the situation. They met in the Oval Office, the weight of the moment heavy in the air. "President Ross," Lyan began, her voice calm but firm. "I know the decision you face is not easy, but I must ask you to consider something. The Zorthians are dying, and your species is the key to saving us. If humanity chooses to reject our offer, my people will not survive. Our civilization will fade away, lost to history." President Ross looked at her, his expression grave. "And if we accept your offer, what happens to us? What happens to humanity?" Lyan took a deep breath. "If you accept, humanity will change. There is no denying that. But you will not lose what makes you human. The process will be gradual, and I will stand by your side every step of the way. You will retain your identity, your culture, and your independence. The merging of our species will not erase who you are. It will enhance you." Ross stared at her for a long moment, his mind racing. He had heard these promises before, but now, with the stakes higher than ever, he found it harder to trust the words. Could he really risk the future of humanity for the survival of an alien species? Was the Zorthian offer worth the cost? "I don't know if I can make this decision, Lyan," he said, his voice filled with uncertainty. "I don't know if I can speak for the people of Earth. This is too big, too important. How can I ask them to accept something so uncertain? How can I make a choice that will change the course of history?" Lyan stepped forward, her gaze softening. "I understand your hesitation, President Ross, but you must understand this. The Zorthians have nothing left to give. We have reached the end of our line. Without the help of your species, we will be lost. I came here not just to ask for your help, but to offer a partnership, a chance for both of our species to evolve, to grow, and to create a future unlike anything either of us could have imagined alone." Ross sighed deeply. "And what if we refuse? What happens to the Zorthians then?" Lyan's expression darkened slightly. "If you refuse, my people will die. We will disappear, and the knowledge and advancements we have accumulated will be lost forever. But the choice is yours, President Ross. I cannot make it for you. You must decide what is best for your people and your world." There was a long silence between them, the weight of the decision hanging in the air like a storm cloud. President Ross knew that the fate of Earth and the Zorthians depended on his next words. What was the right choice? Could humanity afford to accept such a profound change? Or should they stand firm in their independence, even if it meant the end of the Zorthian race? As Ross sat in his chair, his mind raced with the possibilities. There were so many unknowns, so many risks. But there was one thing he knew for certain. He could not ignore the reality that humanity had always been a species driven by curiosity, by a desire to grow and explore. Could this be humanity's next great step, or would it be their undoing? I don't know the answer, Ross finally said, looking up at Lyan. But I can't make this decision without the people of Earth having their say. They must have a voice in this. The choice cannot rest solely on my shoulders. Lyan nodded, understanding his reasoning. I agree. The decision must be made by all of you. But know this, President Ross, time is running out. We cannot wait forever. My people are depending on this. In the days that followed, President Ross called for a worldwide referendum. The people of Earth would have the opportunity to vote on whether to accept the Zorthian offer or reject it and risk the extinction of an entire species. The debate was fierce. There were those who saw this as a chance for humanity to evolve and grow, to reach new heights. Others feared the unknown and rejected the idea of altering their very nature. As the referendum date drew closer, Lyan prepared herself for whatever the outcome would be. She knew that the decision was no longer in her hands, and she could only hope that the humans would see the potential in their future together. The world waited. The choice, once made, would change everything. The day of the referendum had arrived. The entire world was on edge, waiting for the results that would shape the future of Earth and the Zorthians. People from all corners of the globe had cast their votes, and now, the final tally would determine the fate of two species. Would humanity accept the Zorthian offer to merge their species, or would they reject it and risk the collapse of an entire civilization? President Samuel Ross stood before the camera in the United Nations headquarters, the weight of the world resting on his shoulders. The results were in, and he was about to announce them. Lyan, standing just behind him, felt the pressure too. She had done all she could to explain the urgency of the situation. But now, the decision was no longer hers to make. It was in the hands of the people of Earth. Today, we stand at a crossroads. President Ross began, his voice calm but filled with the gravity of the moment. We have all heard the plea of the Zorthians. They have come to us with an offer, a chance to change not only our future, but the future of an entire species. We have been given the opportunity to merge with the Zorthians, to evolve together, and create a new path forward. But we have also been asked to make a sacrifice, to accept change on a scale unlike anything humanity has ever known. He paused, letting his words sink in. The room was silent, the eyes of the world fixed on him. Lyan stood quietly behind him, her expression unreadable. She had done everything she could, but the decision was out of her hands. After days of deliberation, debates, and discussions, President Ross continued, "The people of Earth have spoken. The results of the referendum are clear." Lyan felt her heart race. She had no idea what the outcome would be. She had spent so much time hoping that humanity would see the potential in their future together. But now, the moment of truth had come. The majority of the people of Earth have voted, President Ross said, his voice steady. And they have decided to accept the Zorthian offer. A hush fell over the room as the news sank in. Lyan felt a sense of relief wash over her, but it was mixed with the weight of the decision. The world had chosen to change. The future of both species would be forever altered. President Ross turned to Lyan, his gaze filled with a mix of hope and uncertainty. "This is just the beginning," he said quietly. "We will need to move forward carefully, step by step. There is much to consider, but we will do this together." Lyan nodded, her violet eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, President Ross. I promise you, Humanity will not regret this decision. We will work together to ensure that the process is beneficial for both our species. We will grow, evolve, and create a future unlike anything we could have imagined alone. The announcement was made to the world. News outlets across the globe reported the results, and people everywhere reacted in different ways. Some celebrated the opportunity to evolve and grow, eager to see what the future would bring. Others were more cautious, uncertain about what this change would mean for their identity and culture. But despite the mixed reactions, one thing was clear. Humanity had chosen to embrace the future, to take a step into the unknown. In the days that followed, Earth and the Zorthians began to work together more closely than ever before. Scientists from both species collaborated on the process of merging their genetic material, ensuring that the transition would be as smooth as possible. It was a delicate process, one that required careful planning and understanding. But with Lyan's guidance and the support of humanity's brightest minds, they began to lay the groundwork for a new era. The world watched with anticipation as the first steps toward a united future were taken. The blending of the two species was a slow and careful process. But as time passed, humanity began to see the changes, both physical and mental. People reported feeling stronger, more connected to each other, and more attuned to the world around them. The potential for growth was limitless, and though the process was difficult at times, humanity began to feel a sense of unity that had never existed before. But the changes were not without their challenges. As with any major shift, there were those who struggled with the idea of giving up certain aspects of their humanity. Cultural identities were questioned, and some feared that they would lose what made them unique. Yet even those who were uncertain could see the benefits of the new future they were building. Slowly but surely, humanity adapted to the changes, finding ways to blend the best of both species without losing their essence. Lyan continued to support the process, guiding both the Zorthians and humans through the difficult transition. She understood the fears that came with change, but she also knew that this was the only way forward. Together, the two species could create something greater than they could have ever imagined alone. As the years passed, Earth began to flourish in ways it never had before. Technology advanced at an incredible rate, and the world's people became more united than ever. The Zorthians, though changed, found themselves adapting to their new world with hope and excitement. And as the last of the genetic merging was completed, a new era began, a future where humanity and the Zorthians were one, growing together in ways that neither species had ever thought possible. Lyan stood on the balcony of her new home, looking out over the world she had helped to shape. Earth had not only survived, but it had thrived. And as she watched the sun rise over the horizon, she knew that both species had made the right choice. The future was bright, and together, humanity and the Zorthians would face whatever came next, with hope, courage, and unity.